I was with her at one of her doctor's appointments, and he was kind of gently letting her know that there were no more treatment options. And you could tell he was bracing himself for what else can we try? What else can we do? And she said, oh, so it sounds like we need to start hospice. And I thought he was going to fall over in his chair. And he just said, wow.
My guest, Karen Fee, took what she learned as an end-of-life caregiver for her mom and shared it with her family and friends, creating a ripple effect that impacted how they all talked about death and dying. Hi, I'm Helen Bauer, and this is the Heart of Hospice podcast. The Heart of Hospice podcast is your source for compassionate and informative discussions about hospice and end-of-life care. I'm a certified hospice and palliative care nurse with over 15 years of experience. Whether you're a caregiver, someone with a serious illness, or you simply need to know more about hospice care, this podcast is for you. Join me as we explore all the aspects of hospice, from the details of caregiving to the emotional and spiritual dimensions of end-of-life journeys. For more resources and to connect with me, visit theheartofhospice.com and find us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Keep listening for today's episode.
This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time. Content presented in the following podcast is for information purposes only. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host and guest and may not represent the views and opinions of the Whole Care Network. Always consult with your physician for any medical advice, and always consult with your attorney for any legal advice. And thank you for listening to the Whole Care Network.
This episode is sponsored by Hospice Navigation Services. When you need information about hospice, Hospice Navigation Services is here to help. An expert navigator will answer your questions about end-of-life care and give you the tools to feel confident in your decisions. A hospice navigation session is a great way to troubleshoot your current hospice care. It's your journey. We can be your guide. Visit hospicenavigation.com to schedule your hospice navigation session today.
Karen Fee is a fundraising executive and educator, raising money for charter schools in Oakland, California, and a nonprofit organization in Uganda. She describes herself as a convener of friends and neighbors, building community around topics ranging from civil service and parenting young adult children to end-of-life challenges. Her group of friends, known as the Mama Surfers, became a place for advanced care plan discussions and reflections. She's here to share what she learned as a caregiver and a daughter, and how that caregiving experience shaped her own advanced care planning. Karen shares her experience as a caregiver for her mom, and how she played a role in supporting her dad and guiding the care decisions. Her mom was a planner, and that made it a lot easier. The Mama Surfers group that Karen belonged to was started by a group of friends who were in the same life circumstances, and they were looking for encouragement and support from each other. Karen suggested to the group that they hold each other accountable and learn how to create their own advanced care plan. And then she talks about how they responded and how that went with the group. There were a couple of people in the group who had some serious events during the time they were working the program, and it affected how and when and whether they were able to complete their advanced care plan. Karen also talked about how she had to help her dad as a caregiver after her mother's death. There were a lot of activities, especially the technology-related ones, that he had never done before. If you're a caregiver or a person supporting a caregiver, you're going to get a lot out of this conversation. Keep listening. There's a lot to learn. Karen, welcome to the Heart of Hospice podcast. It's great to have you with me.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to spring an icebreaker question on you from the dementia deck.
Okay.
It's a set of cards that end-of-life workers can use to have end-of-life conversations, advanced care plan conversations. And I thought this would be perfect for our conversation today because we're going to be talking about advanced care planning. So
Great. I have a copy of the death deck, which might be by the same.
It is.
By the same person. The cards look similar.
Yeah. So she's got three decks: the death deck, the end of life deck, and the dementia deck. It's a hospice social worker named Lisa Paul. She's a great friend of ours. Love the stuff that she's doing. The death deck is really a game night game, right? It's a set of cards, but they're conversation starters, really just to spark the idea that you can talk about death without dying right that minute.
Yeah. And enjoy yourselves.
Yes, it's hilarious. Some of it's fairly irreverent. Some of the questions are hilarious. But the dementia deck and the end of life deck are designed to be a little more reflective and maybe a little more user friendly for people who are working in the end of life space. A little more respectful, I guess.
Got it.
So here's your question. Keeping up my appearance, like hair, nails, etc., is A, not important, just keep me clean and comfortable. B, is very important to my sense of self. Or C, comfort is first, but I can still be fabulous. What do you think?
I mean, I think I'd have to go with C. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. I think I feel like I end up in the middle ground with a lot of things. Balance. Not too extreme on either end.
That's actually pretty good. It kind of makes it easier for your caregivers.
I think that my caregivers would often end up saying, "Let's find the middle ground here."
Yeah, my caregivers, my two daughters, would say that's too much trouble. We're not doing that. My two daughters. So you are a daughter caregiver. You were a caregiver for your mom. Tell me about your caregiving experience with her at the end of her life.
Well, I was really lucky. She gave me and my brother and my dad and the rest of our family a real gift in that she had things very well prepared. Even before she knew that she had a terminal cancer. And that's just the kind of person she was. So I wasn't surprised to sit down with her and my dad and for them to kind of lay out their plans and for it to be very organized, very clear. She had a service planned out. The people who were going to be a part of her service knew that. All of the documentation, financial documents, everything, medical, all taken care of. And that way that in those, like about 8 weeks that she was declining before she died, we were able to spend time together in a way that wasn't like this hustle to get the things organized, get the decisions made, or make sure we had all the passwords. That was all done. And so those 8 weeks were more, I mean, there was a lot to do in terms of just helping her and all these medications to keep her comfortable. And then just, that awkward, this is the last time we're going to do this, or people coming to visit and managing that. But we weren't doing like the logistics. We were doing the more emotional part of end of life. And so that was just a huge gift. And I recognized that was a gift and that it would be much different, especially as she declined. And since she was the person who kept everything organized for my parents, if I was trying to like get this information out of her, and I felt like there was a timer on.
Mm. Yeah, it creates some luxury and some space for having more meaningful, company, friends, family at the bedside, rather than
Mm-hmm.
you leaning in and saying, "What's your Netflix password?"
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. Were you the designated decision maker for your mom?
Yeah.
Ah,
I mean,
okay.
my dad was there for everything, but he really deferred to me because he trusted me, and and he was uncomfortable making the decisions by himself. I mean,
Mhm.
maybe ultimately he was supposed to be the decision maker, but it was very clear that we would be doing it together. And he kept looking to me like, what should we do? What should we do?
Yeah, he would kind of deflect it onto you to find out.
Yeah. He didn't want to do it on his own.
Interesting. I think that probably applies to a lot of people who are decision makers, healthcare proxies, medical power of attorneys. It's so much easier if you've got somebody to be a sounding board with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Were there any of your mom's decisions or directions that she had given that you didn't agree with? Were there any of those things that made you uncomfortable?
To be totally honest, I didn't love her service. Um, and it's not at all what I want. And it's been pretty easy to tell my kids, like, grandma service, that's not what I want. Um, she was a very, very devout Christian, and the service, literally in the service, they did if today you want to accept Jesus into your heart at the end, please come forward. And I was just like, wait, what? But that's the way that church does things, and it was her choice. And as much as it made me cringe, and my friends who were there were probably like, you've got to be kidding me. But it was her choice.
Yeah.
And so we went with it. Obviously,
It was what your mother felt would be meaningful.
and she was very involved with her church, and that's the way their church does a memorial service.
Right.
And there was a lot of other wonderful, like, people speaking, and beautiful photos and singing. But just that focus felt really odd to me. And that's just their formula for a memorial service.
Mm-hmm.
And they took care of everything, and they had food afterwards. And so, who was I to say no?
Well, and I realize that any person who has a serious illness, life-limiting, terminal illness, that's their choice, right? You get to plan it out. But I do advise, and I really encourage people when they're making plans for those things to remember that the services that are provided after your death are about your grievers. It's about your family, the people that will still be here. So I think it's important to plan a service or not plan a service based on what would give them comfort. You had a group, and it wasn't really even an advanced care plan group. It became an advanced care planning group, a group of friends you called the Mama Surfers. How did that group get started, and how did you get to end of life planning?
Yeah, so the group started when a friend realized that when your kids are little, often you have moms groups where you're going through these challenges that you've never experienced before together. And you bring your kids to the moms group usually, and you're talking about things like sleep and feeding, and just how your lives have changed because of these kids. And then the kids get bigger, and life, gets very busy. And then those same little kids go off to college. And this friend very astutely looked around and said, my life has totally changed relative. It's because of my kids, because they're gone, but I have a lot of things that I want to explore about this new stage of life. And so she gathered a group of friends. There were 15 of us. And she invited us to read a book together about parenting adult children. And we met once a week for 10 weeks. And the conversations were very, very rich and very helpful because we were all in this new and totally new chapter. And it felt really, really different to all of us. All of us were very involved moms, very homogeneous group, all married, all, socioeconomically very similar, living in a small town in Davis, California. But really, and really experiencing things similarly. All of our kids had gone off to college, and we were just trying to figure out, how do you navigate that relationship with your adult child in the most healthy way. And someone was saying that she just feels like she's riding the waves all the time, like of pride and then grief. So we were so proud of our kids taking off, but then you look around and you're like, wow, that part of my life is over.
Yeah.
And now I've got to find a new identity and new way to fill my time. And some people, we had talked about how to fill our time, and some people had talked about going surfing, and someone's like, I'm surfing all the time, riding those waves. And so someone called our group the Mama Surfers. And so that was the name of our text group, was Mama Surfers. So after that first 10 weeks of reading just a very short book that really sparked these great conversations about parenting adult children, then we read a book, also 10 short chapters, about life during the empty nest phase. And all the things that you can do now, and how to approach it, how to make it, don't squander these years, make it meaningful. And in the back of my mind was this little voice thinking about my mom and the gift she gave me by having her end of life plan in place. And also the experience of my kids off being independent, but calling me and saying, Mom, where's my birth certificate? I need it for this. Mom, can you send me that card for my car insurance?
Yes.
Mom, and I'm thinking, they are relying on me too much. They were able to rely on me for 18 years and now going on 22 years. And they know they can rely on me, and that's great. But I need to be able to not be a part of the equation, and then for them to still function. And so I just realized I am doing them a disservice at this point, because if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, they are going to be screwed.
Yeah.
They're going to have to piece a bunch of stuff together. And if I love them enough to have cared for them for this long, why don't I love them enough to make it easy on them if something happens to me soon, and certainly when something happens to me later, much like my mom did. So as we were nearing the end of the second book, I said to the group, kind of sheepishly, and I said, you guys do not have to sign on to this, but I am looking for some accountability partners, because before I can take off on this next chapter and have this, amazing, life-fulfilling experience with my husband and doing all these things, I got to get my ducks in a row in terms of end-of-life planning. And I explained a little more about what that meant. And every single person signed on.
All 15.
All 15 said, oh, geez, I haven't done that. Because I explained, this is what it entails. And people were at varying stages of having a plan, but nobody was fully planned. And some people had done nothing. And so they were like deer in the headlights, like, oh my gosh.
How
So,
old were the people in the group, Karen?
oh, we're all in our 50s,
Okay.
like literally like 49 to 52, 53,
Okay.
recent empty nesters. And then I had this insight knowing my husband's cousin, Jennifer O'Brien, and the work that she had done around end of life planning. So I told the group, I know an expert. I will get in touch with her. I'll find out what we need to do. And next semester, we've been doing this kind of in semesters. We'll embark on this together. So I found another book. There's so many resources out there. But I really felt like this format that we had found of a slim book that's divided into chapters. And I found one that was also 10 chapters. That gives you 10 weeks. And certainly with some holidays, it took us probably more like 12 weeks. But that felt like the right amount of homework each week to read that chapter and start doing those things. No, very few of us got it done in the 12 weeks. But each meeting, then we really had something meaty to discuss, whether we were talking about what is a trust. And then people were in various places with the trust. But by the end of that meeting, people had a better understanding of what they needed to do if they didn't have a trust yet. What is what are some planning things you need to do for, passwords were like the biggest conversation. And people saying, oh, I would never do that with my passwords. And some people like, I have it printed out. So just hearing other people's experiences with all of the documents that go into it. And then like literally like the very logistical things like, no, you need to go get a notary to do these, but you don't need a notary for this. Or I'm making my will, but my kids are 20, 19, 22, and 24. I don't want them to have all of our assets until they're older. And so other people weighing in saying, well, this is what we did. So it was very helpful to talk through the different scenarios that the people hadn't considered and other people had considered and had a solution for. Yeah. So it was really, really helpful to have those conversations. And so over those 12 weeks, we went through the whole, every part of this book that hit every part of end of life planning. And I'd say probably 3 of us kind of got it all done. A few of us, I still, when I see them and we've continued to meet about other things, I still want to do that. They kind of look to me like, I'm still working on that. I'm like, great.
Yeah.
And then people will ask me questions like I'm an expert. And
were you one of the group that got it done?
Yeah. Yeah. I was determined. Like I know too much now to not do it.
Yeah. After your experience with your mom.
And reading this book and everything, I'm like, why wouldn't I just muscle through this and get it done? Yeah. And then, it's not perfect, but if something were to happen to me and my husband, my kids would know what to do, and they wouldn't have to deal with finding out our wishes or where our accounts and all that in the middle of, grief or hospital stays or whatever.
Karen, didn't you tell me that when we had our intro call that there was somebody in the group that found the topic to be overwhelming and dropped out of the group while you were doing this particular topic of advanced care planning?
We had a couple of interesting situations. That friend went to visit her father on the East Coast, and during her journey there, he took his life.
Oh, wow.
He knew she was coming.
So he died by suicide before she could make it. to see
Yep.
him.
Yep. And when she got there, he had done a very careful job of end-of-life planning. But she couldn't meet with the group anymore.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. And then another friend, her mom died, more along the lines of my mom, a terminal diagnosis, and things were planned. And so she was living in it real time. And she continued to come, and I think she found the group a great source of support. And she was very frank too. She was able to say, well, this is what my mom had, and this is why I'm glad she had it. And, you know, and then my brother came in and had all these questions, and we were able to say, nope, here are her documents. And so
Yeah.
that was helpful to have her perspective.
It is quite a gift. I think it's hard to understand what a relief it is to have that kind of planning handed to you until you've been through it, until you're the one doing the estate management. So when you were working with your mom's stuff after her death, what challenged you the most in helping your dad sift through and organize things?
There were not challenges. The challenge was getting him up to speed on managing their household.
Mm.
My mom had done everything, and my dad didn't even have a cell phone.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And
So was your mother sort of the communicator for her partnership with your
Totally.
dad? Yeah.
I mean, my dad had, his parts of the house and his life, and she took care of running the household. And so we had to get him a cell phone and teach him the basics, how to use it. And and then, paying bills online. He never had an email address. So then we had to switch everything over to paper bills. And that was by far the challenge,
Oh, wow.
technology.
Yeah, the technology
for
piece.
an 80-year-old, he was 82 when she died, having never used any of that technology and then picking it up at 82. That was by far the hardest part.
Was he willing to do that?
Totally willing, but it's, trying to explain the difference between a press and a tap on a cell phone to an 82-year-old.
Yes.
And they do completely different things.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, you're pressing it. You have to tap it. And he'd look at me like, you've got to be kidding me. I'm like, no, I know. It's ridiculous, but you'll get two different results based on if you press or you tap. And swipe up. And, that was by far the biggest challenge is living with that technology and having to function with that technology.
Yeah. Even if he was willing, it's very different.
Totally willing. I mean, and he's of maybe a generation or a mindset or both where very, very able to fix everything and mechanically or oriented. So if anything in their house, our house would break, he could fix it. And so he kept asking me why about the technology. And I'm like, or how it works. I'm like, I have no idea how it works.
Nobody really knows how that stuff works. Yeah, yeah.
But he's used to being able to take something apart or, look at it and say, oh, well, this pushes this lever and then da. So that was hard.
Was your dad an engineer by any chance?
He should have been, but he wasn't. He was like a de facto engineer.
Yeah, he had that kind of mind. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's also given us great gift. He decided in about 2.5 years after my mom died, he sat me down and my husband and I were visiting him, and he said, I'm not living in this house alone for another winter.
Mm.
And so that was another big challenge is we helped give away everything in their house and moved him into a 1-bedroom apartment in a senior community. And now I don't have to worry about the technology, and he's safe, and he's eating well, and he's exercising, and he has a lady friend down the hall, and he's turned all of his finances over to me, which has been a big relief for him.
I can imagine. After the sponsor break, Karen is going to share the shocking moment when her mom told her own doctor she was ready for hospice.
This episode is sponsored by Hospice Navigation Services.
If you or someone you care about is dealing with a life-limiting illness, you need a guide. Hospice Navigation Services is here to help you get the best end-of-life care possible. We understand the importance of personalized, experienced support. Hospice navigators provide one-on-one support over the phone or through video calls to guide you every step of the way. They'll answer your questions, explain what hospice care looks like, and give you the tools to feel confident in your decisions. Whether you're planning ahead or you have an urgent need, Hospice Navigation Services helps you and your family understand your options for end-of-life care. A hospice navigation session is a great way to troubleshoot your current hospice care and get answers to your questions. You don't have to go through this alone. You deserve compassionate support and guidance for your end-of-life experience. Hospice Navigation Services can be your guide. To book your hospice navigation session and receive your free guide to end-of-life care, visit our website at hospicenavigation.com. It's your journey. Hospice Navigation Services can be your guide. Knowing what you know with your mom's death and managing their financial stuff, you know that the transition to you being responsible for your dad's finances, and as he begins to decline and is unable to do those things, that's a huge lead in. If you know in advance and you're already involved, having your name on a bank account, that's major for a lot of older adults or someone who gets sick and then all of a sudden they can't manage finances and nobody can access anything.
Yeah, in fact, we've talked about, does this group want to do a caring for aging parents next, because we're all dealing with it in different ways. And again, some of those realizations that if your name isn't on the account, your hands are tied.
Yeah.
My dad's bank account is in a trust. And so his bank actually just told him and told us together, if I'm just have his username and password, then they don't have to pull it out of the trust. We don't have to pull it out of the trust, put my name on it, and put it back into the trust. And that's the route that we're going.
Has your dad been able to learn online banking and do that?
No.
Yeah, that's a tricky one.
He cannot believe that I can sit at the kitchen table and deposit a check with my phone.
Oh yeah, it's like magic.
Mind blowing. Yeah.
Yeah.
How does that work? I don't know. It just does.
Yeah, we don't actually know how it works. It just does. What, if anything, would you change about your experience, your caregiving experience with your mom?
Well, like I said, it almost got, maybe I didn't say this before, but it almost got completely derailed into something that would have been could have been a pretty unhappy, awful experience, more so than it already was. So my mom read Being Mortal by Atul Gawande years and years ago. And she was very clear-eyed about mortality. And I was with her at one of her doctor's appointments, and he was kind of gently letting her know that there were no more treatment options. And you could tell he was bracing himself for what else can we try? What else can we do? And she said, oh, so it sounds like we need to start hospice. And I thought he was going to fall over in his chair. And he just said, wow. And she said, well, if there's no more treatment, then let's do everything we can to make, what time I have left more comfortable. And he kind of straightened up, and you could tell, he said, oh, this is a different conversation, and one that I'm more comfortable having. And so we very quickly transitioned her into hospice, within like 8 or 10 hours, we had hospice people coming to their house and helping make things so much easier, because we didn't know what we didn't know about what kind of comfort we could provide her. And so we entered into the hospice caregiving stage, and then my aunts and uncles, my adult kids, friends started coming over to their house and, cooking meals and, sitting around by the pool, having a beer and chips and salsa and talking and telling stories. And it was an awful backdrop, but really great time together. And as she got worse and worse, my dad started to panic and said, I don't know how to do this. We're not going to be able to do this.
Was there anything specific? Like, was he panicked about the medicines or the fact that she was going to die in the house? Or was just the whole thing overwhelming?
I think it was a few things. I think he he couldn't see how it was going to play out because he'd never done it before.
Yeah.
And would we know what to do? I think there was definitely a little bit about the medicines. He was hesitant to give her the morphine. I think a belief about hastening someone's death.
Yes.
Or even, like, I don't know, people get addicted to morphine. I don't know. But in my mind, I was like, give her on schedule or ahead of schedule. Comfort is paramount, and we're not worried about addiction here.
Right.
And he would hold back on them. I don't know that we should do that. When he would leave the room, I would go ahead and make sure she had the full dose on time. And then I think you mentioned something else. The medicines were a little bit, just maybe the uncertainty.
Her dying in the home. Was he concerned about that actually happening in the house?
Maybe, I don't know. But I think that kind of went into like the uncertainty, like how does this unfold?
Yeah, how does this look here?
Yeah. And I wonder, it really reminded me, and maybe that's because the death doula suggestion was made. It reminded me of the women can bring life into this world. And I think you can trust a bunch of women to help usher another life out of this world. And so I think I had that trust, like, I've never done this before, but I can figure it out.
Yeah.
And I had other women, my aunt with me, my mom's best friend, one of my best friends. And we were looking to each other, like, for comfort. And so that was being able to keep her, have a death doula then FaceTimed with us. And she wasn't able to come in person, but we did a FaceTime, and she just reassured us. She said, you guys are doing a fantastic job, and you've got all these people around you. Don't move her into a hospice facility.
Isn't that what everybody needs to hear? You're doing a good job.
You're doing a great job.
You got this.
Keep it up. You've got this. And so that helped my dad. And then we weren't robbed of these incredible memories. Like my kids, one was still in high school and was 16, and one took a quarter off college, kind of it was just after the pandemic, and she came, and so two of my kids were there. Two of the three were there much of the time in the last week and a half. And they saw how hard it was for me to be getting up at night and turning her.
Mm-hmm.
And so they said, Mom, we're going to take a turn. And so they learned how to do it, and they would get up at 3:00 in the morning and turn her. And I just thought, if she weren't at home, they would not have that experience, that closeness. And it was so meaningful for them to experience that. So we narrowly averted a disaster, I think,
Yeah.
by having that phone call and that reassurance that you're doing a great job. You can do this. Just keep doing it.
Does your dad look back on it and say, yeah, it was hard, but it was the right thing, and I'm glad we stuck to the plan even though it was hard?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And then I did remind him that, being the planner that my mom was, they were members of the Neptune Society because they traveled the world before she got sick. And my mom was so concerned that something would happen in, Jordan or Indonesia or somewhere, and we'd get this call and be, left trying to figure out what to do with their remains. And so they were members of the Neptune Society. So I knew very clearly, here's the card. You call this number, you'll get some ashes delivered. And as it turned out, she was not far away. She was in her bedroom, but we called the Neptune Society and they took care of everything. So even that little part of it was very, very smooth because of that planning.
Yeah, how such a small thing. One
Mm-hmm.
piece of the planning makes such a difference. So when you were doing your own end-of-life planning after this had all happened with your mom, was there anything about your process, that experience with your own stuff, that surprised you?
Honestly, I think it surprised me how practical and just, it wasn't easy, but it felt very, pretty clear. And I was able to think of it very sort of clear-headed, and partly because it was fresh with my mom, it was pretty easy for me to say, I don't want my kids to have to worry about this or this, so I'm going to take care of that. I don't want them to wonder what I want for a service and have to wrestle with that. I don't want them to have to worry about, what to do with ashes. So I think it was the fact that she was very well planned. I think it just made it easier for me. So I thought it might be more emotional than it was. And I was able to be a little bit detached.
Well, it sounds like your mom, not only did she make it easier for you and your family because she had a plan, it sounds like because she had a plan, she also made it easier for you to make your own plan.
Yeah, I would say that.
Yeah, it's the gift that keeps on giving. It sounds a little crazy, but how important is that, right? How valuable is that?
And did I pass that on to my friends?
Yeah, you took it out to your group. So that's the last question I wanted to ask you. So you've got 3 kids. Did you talk to them about your end-of-life plan? And if you did, what was their response to it?
I mean, it's a joke now because I'm like, guess what, you guys? Guess what I want to talk to you about?
Guess what?
I know. What part of end-of-life planning do you want to talk about today, Mom? But they also totally understand that it's a gift to them.
Yeah.
So I've just told them the very basic. Here's the information. It's all in the safe, in the folder, in the safe. It's pretty laid out. What I care about is written down. And hopefully you guys don't need it for a really, really long time.
Nice. So they weren't surprised at all.
Oh, no. And having Jennifer as part of our family, we talk about it a lot. We joke about about it a lot. And I think in general, our family has a pretty clear-eyed view um, of end of life. My father-in-law was in a fatal bike accident, and he was in the at 68, and he was in the UC Davis Medical Center for about 4 days, and we had to take him off of life support as a family, and that really, that experience, that kind of, I can't believe we just did that end of life experience with a family member has, I think, made it so that we have a lot more conversations maybe than other families.
Yeah, I
about
can
end
imagine.
of life.
Yeah.
And as a part of our group doing this together, it was interesting to see other members of their families who I know who would thank me for doing it. Like one of the husbands, I ran into him at the library, and he just said, "Thank you so much for getting these conversations going in my family, because we need to talk about it and we don't." And so I think everybody in that group, all 15 of us, were at very different places and our spouses and our kids were at wildly different places in either thinking about end of life or being buttoned up, planned. But I think all of us moved to a place of being better planned, better prepared, and also for our aging parents, because some of our aging parents hadn't done anything and needed to get on board too. So some of them weren't doing it for themselves as much as for their mom or dad or parents. So in the end, we did a round of the death deck, multiple. We got the death deck out and we did it as our last meeting. And I gave away those at peace stickers that Jennifer O'Brien has, that symbol that she's made of at peace. And we really kind of realized how far we'd grown. We should have done the death deck at the first meeting and the last meeting, and then we could compare how much had we learned and how much had we reflected in the process, because by the end, I feel like our level of reflection was quite high, and we were, at a different spot with our planning.
That's very cool. I love the idea. A little bit of comic relief with the death deck, but also, because it has the reflective questions. Karen, yes. I have to tell you that I'm considering the friends that I have that are sort of in my age group, my stage of life, who could do a group like this with me. I think the ripples of what you did, your experience with your mother, and then how it affected your children, and then your friends in this group, and then their spouses and their families. It's pretty cool the way this has gone beyond just this group of 15 friends.
I do believe that it has had a ripple effect, and they joke to me like, "Oh, now I'm the expert in my family, in my extended family." So everyone's asking me about my experience. So like you become a mini expert just by, doing a little bit of the research and going through some of the steps. So I feel good about that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing your experience. I know the listeners are going to get something really valuable out of this. And so if you're listening and you're like me and you haven't done your advanced care planning, consider starting a little group. It doesn't have to be 15 people, maybe just 5 or 10, nope. However many friends you want to include, and get your advanced care plan done.
I was surprised that all 15 signed on.
That's pretty cool.
But you wouldn't need to be that big of a group to have the accountability to move you through the process.
Yeah.
And have the discussions too.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing your story, Karen.
You are so welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Heart of Hospice podcast. Check out our sponsor in the show notes and please leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. We would appreciate it if you would share this episode with your friends and family and anyone who needs to know more about hospice. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, no matter who you are or where you are in your hospice journey, you are the heart of hospice.
This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time.